I'm Ben Gonzalez. This is TDI. So, did you know that lightning strikes the U.S. about 25 million times each year? Joining us to discuss lightning safety is meteorologist John Jensenius with the National Lightning Safety Council. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you for having me, Ben.
Oh, thanks for doing this today. So, what are some things about lightning that people may not know?
Well, a lot of people understand just a few things about lightning. First of all, it's obviously a flash. They hear thunder that's caused by lightning. But one of the most important things that they don't realize is that lightning can strike up to 10 miles from where it's raining. Um, and that makes lightning particularly dangerous. So you can only hear thunder about 10 miles from a storm. So if you're hearing thunder, you're likely already within striking distance of the storm and need to get to a safe place right away. Uh, People sometimes count between the flash and the thunder. For every 5 seconds you count between the flash and the thunder, it tells you it's a mile away. But what it doesn't tell you is where the next flash is going to be. And if you're hearing that thunder, that next flash could be very near to you.
And also with lightning, we've seen it when it strikes buildings. We've heard that there's can be thousands of degrees of heat, right? There's an intense heat with lightning.
There is. Lightning itself is electricity that's flowing. And when lightning strikes an object and it tries to pass through the object, it heats up the object. So when lightning strikes, for example, a building, it can generate heat. That heat can obviously cause a fire.
Do we know how many times fires are caused or attributed to lightning each year?
Well, we know that somewhat from insurance claims, and there are about 70,000 insurance claims every year for lightning, about $2 billion in damage. What I do know is, of course, that lightning strikes homes probably many more times than that because a lot of people don't file those claims. So we do know it's more than 70,000 and probably quite a bit more than 70,000.
Yeah, I would guess that sometimes it's just attributed to a fire as opposed to being documented as a lightning strike.
Right. And in the state of Texas, I should point out about 4,700 claims for lightning in the state of Texas, $78 million in damage on that.
Just in the Lone Star State. So, is there anything that a home or business owner can do to make their buildings more lightning safe or harden their electrical system?
Well, the first consideration is, of course, you want to prevent a fire. The second consideration is what the electricity could do once it enters your home. So when we talk about a lightning protection system, we're talking about really three components to that system. The first component is what people refer to as the lightning rods. And in reality, they're what are called air terminals. The purpose of those air terminals is to intercept the lightning. They don't attract the lightning, but if lightning is about to strike your home or your business, the purpose is to intercept the lightning. Now, if they do intercept the lightning, you want to take that lightning and provide a path not only to the ground, but in the ground. So a second component is what's called the down conductor, which attaches to the air terminals that are on the roof lines and takes the lightning down the side of the building. And then you've got to get rid of that energy. So the third component is the ground terminals or grounding rods. And they literally distribute that energy, hopefully deep enough in the ground so that it's not a concern for people on the ground level.
And I guess there's professionals that install these systems.
Yes, definitely. It should be done by a professional. There are certified protection or certified professionals. The Lightning Protection Institute certifies people. You also want to make sure that everything is following the National Electric Code. Now, the second way that lightning can enter your home is through wiring. And for that, you really need a whole house protection system, something that not only takes your electrical wires, but any outside wires, whether it be cable or an antenna, and protects your house from that. Because that is probably the greatest concern as far as damaging electronics in the home. And a lot of the damage these days is caused to the electronics. And of course, if you have a lightning strike that gets into your computer, you're likely not just going to lose the computer, but you're going to lose all the information that's in the computer. And that often is much more valuable than the computer itself.
One of the things I just thought about when you're talking right now is that, here in Texas, one of the big insurance claims is hail. We have a lot of hail damage in Texas. So some people have taken to using metal roofing components. Is that a concern with lightning?
Well, metal roof, like any other roof, is going to attract lightning. But again, if it strikes it, you want to have a path for it to follow. So you do want to, even with a metal roof, if you want to protect your home, you need to have the lightning rods or the air terminals, the down conductors, and the grounding system. So those are the very important components. And of course, as I said, for the electronics, some sort of a whole house surge protection system. People have to keep in mind, I talked a little bit about the computers and the information that's on the computers. When you're talking about a fire in the claims, it's not just the house, the physical part, but also a lot of family mementos and family valuables may be lost in that fire. So there are a lot of considerations when you think of what could happen in a single lightning strike.
Yeah, I think with my computer, I think all the family photos, that's where we've taken to storing them as opposed to the box in the closet now. So definitely do your backups, folks. So those are kind of some of the things about property, but we told people we're going to talk about safety. So we've heard different things about what you should do if you, like you said, you hear lightning, you're in range of it. So what should you do if you're caught outside in a storm?
Well, that's an interesting question, because that's a question that I get all the time. And my answer is, don't worry about what to do when you get caught in a storm. Worry about what you should do so you don't get caught in a storm, because you don't want to be out there in a storm. If you are in a storm, there may be little or nothing you can do to protect yourself. So let's focus first on what to do so you don't get caught outside in the storm. First of all, we recommend listening to the forecast. And if thunderstorms are predicted, consider not going out or making sure that you have a safe place to get to. And there are really only two safe places. One is in a substantial building. The second is in a hard-topped metal vehicle. Both provide very good protection. So if you are going out and thunderstorms are forecast, be sure that you can get to one of those places very quickly. Secondly, if you are outside, keep an eye on the sky, monitor conditions. There are many apps out there that allow you to look at radar, look at lightning information, and don't wait. A lot of times the mistake that people made is they just wait too long to get to a safe place, and that puts them in a dangerous and potentially deadly situation. So monitor the weather. If you do hear thunder, even a distant rumble, you're already in danger and you need to get to a safe place immediately. Don't waste any time, just get to a safe place. And those are really the most important factors so you don't get caught outside in the storm. Now, I do want to focus a little bit on a couple activities where we see the most fatalities. One is fishing. Well, that comes with its own challenges. If you're out fishing some distance from safety, it may be hard to hear thunder with a motor running. So consider what you're doing, consider how you're going to monitor the weather, and as I said, get to the safe place. If you are outside and you hear thunder and you absolutely can't get to a safe place, you're in a bad situation. But what we recommend is just simply running as fast as you can to something safer. It's not safe to lie on the ground. You do want to get as low as possible if you're hearing or feeling your hair stand up. But as far as being out there, it's just a very bad situation. And a thunderstorm typically is going to last 20 minutes. So even if you've heard the first rumble of thunder, If you can get to that safe place in 10 minutes, you've cut your risk in half.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned there's two activities. Can I guess the second one might be golf?
Oh no, well, actually, there are a few activities. Number one is fishing.
Oh,
That's the one that puts people most at risk. The second one, and I know you have this in Texas, is beaches. People go to the beach. You have the sounds of the surf that may limit your ability to hear the thunder. You may not even be looking in the right direction. Usually, people are sitting on the beach looking at the water. That thunderstorm may sneak up behind you. You can't hear the thunder because of the surf. Again, these are places where you really have to be careful. A third one is camping. And then a fourth one is ranching and farming. So people are out ranching and farming, and again, they may be some distance from safety, but they really need to monitor the weather and have a safe place to get to.
well, I had never even considered the beach, and I don't even think about lightning when I'm out there. But now that you say that, I think I have seen lightning in the distance over the water. So that's very interesting. So, what happens when a person is struck by lightning? What is the actual injury that occurs?
Well, first of all, there are various ways people can be struck by lightning. The first one, and this is the one that most people think of, is a direct strike. You're out there, you're in the open, you get struck directly. But most people that are injured by lightning are not struck directly. The most common thing is actually through what we call ground current. Lightning strikes nearby, it follows the ground, and it literally goes up one leg and down the other and through your body. Um, you've often heard that don't stand under a tree. That's another way where the tree gets struck and it jumps to the person. And then through wiring, don't be touching a wire, of course, in your home if there's a thunderstorm. So those are all ways people get struck. Now, the immediate concern when anybody is struck is cardiac arrest. And that could occur within seconds, or it could occur a little bit later. So you want to, first of all, call 911, get some safety on the way, help on the way, and then continue to monitor the person, make sure they don't go into cardiac arrest. And if they do, start administering CPR. There are many lightning victims that are alive today because of CPR.
Oh, that's great advice. You mentioned touching a wire, so that's another thing we wanted to cover is things to do when you're inside and there's a storm. So we really shouldn't be messing with our appliances or electronics?
Well, if lightning strikes a house, it often gets into the wiring system. And that should be an immediate warning for anybody is you don't want to be touching anything that's plugged into an electrical outlet. Because whatever is plugged in could be energized in that lightning strike, and if you're touching it, you could be struck by lightning. Secondly, a lot of times it's in the plumbing system as well. So any pipes or any water, you want to stay away from that. You don't want to be, for example, washing dishes or taking a shower during a thunderstorm because if lightning strikes your house, you could get struck.
Wow, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was one of the questions about should you be avoiding plumbing. It sounds like lightning can get you whether you're inside or outside. Do we need to be worried about this, or are the odds really that 1 in a million we've heard?
Well, lightning. If you're very careful, lightning, is something you can just simply sit on a chair or a sofa and watch from your living room. And I personally find lightning very fascinating. I love to watch it, but I do it from a safe place, and I make sure that I'm not touching wires and not on the computer. In answer to your question, when we look at overall statistics, your odds of being struck in a given year are about 1.5 million. Now that doesn't sound like very much, but if you consider that you hope to live to perhaps 80 years or so, that number starts dropping to about 1 in 1,800, or I'm sorry, 1 in 18,000. And if you consider that not only do you not want to get struck, but you don't want any of your family to get struck either. So if you consider that maybe there are 10 people, either friends or family, that are close to you, that cuts it down to 1 in 1,800, a 1 in 1,800 chance in your lifetime. Now, I should point out, those are overall statistics, and I don't really like overall statistics because I don't think my numbers are nearly that high. My odds are nearly that high because your odds depend on your behavior around thunderstorm. And if you're going to be safe around thunderstorms, your odds are going to go down quite a bit. But on the other hand, if you kind of ignore the dangers of thunderstorms, if you don't get in right away, if you don't plan ahead, then your odds are a lot higher. So, it's always good to consider the odds, but at the same time, also consider the consequences of your behavior and your actions.
Yeah, one of the things you said earlier, John, was about make sure you're paying attention to the forecast. I find in my little group, there's two kinds of people. There's the junkies that watch the weather all the time and have all the apps, and there's people that didn't know it was supposed to rain or freeze that day.
Yeah, that can happen. But even so, if you just rely on just the sound of thunder and make sure you can get to that safe place, people ask me, are there warnings for lightning? And at this point, no, the National Weather Service is not issuing warnings for lightning. They do put out information about it, but the thunderstorm issues the warning. It tells you it's coming by just that sound of thunder. And oftentimes when I'm talking to little children, they're scared of thunderstorms because the thunder is so loud. And I say the thunder has to be that loud so it can warn people great distances away to get inside.
Perfect. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today, John. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like the odds are in your favor. They get tighter over your lifetime, but hopefully you'll never need to make an insurance claim for a lightning strike. But if you do and you want to learn more about home insurance, please start on our website. It's tdi.texas.gov. And if you've got another insurance question that you can't find an answer to, you can also call our helpline, which is 800-252-3439. So for John Jensenius, I'm Ben Gonzalez. This is TDI.